Welcome to Let's Podcast, and we're here with Tecmo Super Bowl on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
And once again, I'm here with my brother, Lumberjack Cracks.
I'm Matt, or what he wants to call me.
And we are here with this game, released in 1993 by Tecmo. More polished version of Tecmo Super Bowl in some aspects, and in some aspects not so much, and we'll get into those.
Yeah, polish. This game actually tells you when the rosters are accurate of. I believe it was August 16th of 1993.
And that's when this game came out in 1993, shortly after they locked in those rosters.
They were really serious about capturing the elements of simulation in this one. They really wanted to let you know when these rosters were accurate.
And I really appreciate them for that. So then, if there was a trade or someone that got released after that, you knew exactly why the rosters were the way they were.
I wonder how difficult it would have been at the time to actually figure out the roster. The internet was not very prevalent then.
It wasn't as easy, They had to do it through magazines and stuff like that. So, we're headed right into a game right now. Matt picked the Packers, and I'm going with the Lions. As you can see, one of the things that's added from Tecmo Super Bowl on the NES is the ability to add the elements of rain and snow. Now, I don't prefer to use either of them because they just kind of, I think just blur the screen. So.
I love weather elements. I've always thought it was a great feature in any sports game, and I usually play with them on if I have the option.
So maybe the second game we'll do, we'll use snow or rain. But for me, for right now, we're not playing with it.
We gotta make sure we're playing at a stadium where it makes sense, Tom.
All right, we'll do that.
There's more Tecmo girls right there.
Tecmo girls.
Tecmo loves their girls.
In everything. Alright, so here you can see that they changed the visuals a little bit. You now have your 16-bit players in all their glory.
You can see every individual blade of grass.
Oh, that is so nice. What a great feature. You also have your text graphics on the top in particular. The bar now is transparent, gray, and you can see the crowd through it. I don't know if I like that, but I don't think it takes away from the game too much.
First down.
It is a little bit lower too, so like on the Nintendo version and the Genesis version of this game, it's just a black bar across the very top. What do you think about how that looks up there? Do you care?
It's a nice touch. I mean, you feel like you're in a stadium. As far as retro games go, I'm used to having a black bar at the top of the screen, so it doesn't make a huge impact, but I'm sure at the time when you saw the crowd instead of just a black bar, you're like, wow, that's awesome. I'm actually in a stadium. Playing with grass,
Yeah. So, one thing I have to say is, for you Retron 5 fans out there, the screen might be a little bit jumpy here. And I tried 3 different Nintendos, 2 originals, and 1 SNES Mini, and it's still a little bit jumpy with all 3 of them. So, the video footage is what it is with the actual consoles using the Game Capture HD, so I can understand why people want to use the Retron 5 now, because it might be a little bit more accurate as far as Game Capture footage.
Well, Tom, you could always mod your system and use an upscaler.
Touchdown! Barry Sanders.
That was pretty quick.
Yeah, so I wanted to use the Lions because Barry Sanders is the fastest running back in this game with the 69 maximum speed. Bo Jackson sadly is not in this game because he had to retire from football because of a hip injury. He did play for the Chicago White Sox after the hip injury. Very nice.
I got cats jumping into the entertainment center.
Yeah, not good. Not good, Logan. Get out of here.
I'm glad that touchdown's wiped off the slate. So your teams are accurate of August 16th, 1993.
Sorry for the technical difficulties right there, but sometimes you just can't control cats and what they're doing, so I suggest if you're in a serious game of Tecmo Super Bowl to put them somewhere where they can't just jump on the system.
I think if you're in a serious game with anything, you should avoid touching the console in any possible way. I remember getting a shredder and then someone kicking the console not too long ago. It was not great.
It was not a cat.
It was not a cat. It was a person. Who will remain nameless. Oh, now you get the kickoff.
Yeah,
So I went with the Green Bay Packers. Despite being from Chicago, I have a lot of respect for Brett Favre and his ability. I do not like the Packers, but they do have Reggie White on the D-line, which he was on the Eagles in the last game. But just having Brett Favre and Sterling Sharp and all that is just a win-win for me.
Yeah, Brett Favre's a solid quarterback in this game. He's definitely a slight upgrade from Don Majkowski, or however you pronounce his name, in Tecmo Super Bowl for the NES.
So an interesting little fun fact, Brett Favre was actually in the league in the last game, but he was the third stringer for the Atlanta Falcons, so he was not in the game.
Oh, Sterling Sharp with the JJ.
Oh yeah, that's how you started. If you notice right away, you can see that the end zones have team names in them. That was not in the last game.
So yeah, there is one enhancement.
There's tons of enhancements for this. This game is pretty similar to the last one.
And I think that was the best route to take, is to not
mess with the formula.
Yeah,
too
not
much.
mess with the formula too much from the NES version, and I think that's why, if I'm going to play anyone besides the NES versions, it's going to be this one and the one on the Genesis.
Now, one thing that they did change in this game that I think they changed it to make it a little more simulation, which I think was a bad choice, was they kind of slowed down the players for this game.
First down.
Everybody moves just like you feel like they move a notch slower than what they used to move in the last game. Would you agree?
Yeah, the game speed is definitely a lot less. It does feel like they're slower, and it's not as easy to pull off nifty moves. So that's one drawback to this game. I do like the very fast pace of Tecmo Super Bowl on the NES. I think they also moved the ratings down of the players. Overall, there wasn't as many overpowered players in this game compared to Tecmo Super Bowl on Nintendo.
One thing I just noticed about this version of the game is I can't slide tackle you after you scored a touchdown and you're doing your brief celebration before the cutscene, because in Tecmo Super Bowl on the NES, if you did that, if they fumbled, you could possibly soft lock the game. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I actually don't remember that portion, but the fact that you can actually make the player fumble after he scores a touchdown, the people who've hacked the ROM have found out that that can actually change the condition of the player, which makes makes their ratings go down. So say if they were good when they scored the touchdown and then you tackle them and they fumble, it could actually go down to average.
Yeah, it's not proper Tecmo etiquette.
It's not. You don't want to do that. You know, I've seen people do it in the tournaments, but you know, people. I'm sure there's some guys who get crazy about it, but most people just are like, whatever. You know, it's part of the game. What can you do?
I mean, this is not NFL Blitz, Tom.
It's not, but it had some blitz elements to it. You know, whether it was intentional or not. A tackle after a touchdown is not a bad feature. It's always a fun thing to do, you know.
Yeah, I agree. Chaos is
Because
fun.
it's not something that you're going to see in an NFL game. So anything that you can do that's not an NFL game in a video game, I think is a plus. And it makes it have more of an arcade feel.
We're just making it down the field here. Not a very big defensive showcase in this game so far.
Really. Oh, deep one.
Yeah! No!
Detroit with recovery.
Oh man, that's rough. Do you like to see the American flag made out of the United States in there?
Yeah, it's not bad to look at, you know. It's a nice little scoreboard stadium feature.
So, how do you feel about the music in this game, Tom?
Well, like the music that's playing now is just kind of a remix version from the Nintendo version. But overall, the music that they have like in the Pro Bowl and the menu music is super annoying because it just kind of loops. It plays the same thing over and over and over again. So I could have done without that. I wish I knew exactly which developers worked on this one versus the one on Nintendo, because music is something that's downgraded in this version.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I mean, it's partially, in my opinion, the reason why I don't like the music in this one is they use that simulated instrument sound for a lot of the things, and I cannot stand that type of music. I like to have the video game like music sound to music in games. I want the video games to speak as a video game and not try to simulate real music.
Yeah. Well, one thing I wanted to comment on that happened on the screen before that touchdown was the 100 yards rushing cutscene from Barry Sanders. So that is a nice upgrade in this game, because you get a cutscene when you pass a certain milestone in a game with a player. So for rushing it's 100 yards, for receiving it's 150, and for passing it's 300 yards. So it gives you an in-game update of how your player's doing. I really like that about this game.
Yeah, I mean, stats is always a cool thing, especially if you know how well you're doing in the middle of the game. That's one of the great things about, what do you call it? NBA Jam. Because at halftime you know how well you've been doing throughout the entire game.
Yeah.
Red 24. Red 24.
So if you notice, when we're kicking the ball off, the time does not start. That's the way it really happens in the NFL, but it doesn't happen like that in Tecmo Super Bowl. So it takes a lot of time off the clock because Tecmo's clock is an accelerated clock, and the kickoff getting down the whole field does take quite a bit of time off. So in turn it makes these games quite a bit longer. I would say on average 5 to 8 minutes longer for a Super Nintendo game of Tecmo Super Bowl. I prefer, like I've said before, the faster paced action of the Nintendo version and also the shorter game times.
Round 52.
So That's one thing you're looking at with this one. That's a lot different, boy.
That's not what
And you haven't seen it yet because neither of us
Red
have
24.
need the ball in the end zone on a kickoff, but they actually got that rule change corrected in this version. It is now a touch. You can.
Oh man! I thought I had it there.
No dice.
Snuck it right in.
Yeah, so you can knee the ball in the end zone now. You're not penalized for getting tackled in the end zone. The safety. So I'm sure you might see one throughout the course of this game. Now, a good thing is they have cutscenes in this game, action cutscenes. They're upgraded versions of basically the same cutscenes we see in Tecmo Super Bowl for NES.
I don't remember if I can make this anymore. Was I too far?
Good, you definitely can't.
That was a feature change.
Yeah, I don't think the kickers have as much range in this game. I could be wrong with that because that's something I haven't really tested. But from what I remember, you're more likely to kick the ball short in this game than you were versus the Nintendo one. Oh, nice JJ. Look at Roddy P coming to play.
First down.
Oh boy.
It's not looking good for me.
6 seconds. I wish I would have picked a different play. I wasn't really paying attention, but that's okay.
You picked the QB scramble.
Yeah, I didn't look at the time. Oh, look at that! Another lady in a bikini for halftime.
Wow.
Some cheerleaders, of course.
Now we got some artist performance here. That's different. There was no panty shot in that though.
They cleaned it up a little bit. Tecmo. And here you go. You got halftime statistics now, so you can look at what your players are doing halfway through the game. And it looks like Barry Sanders is tearing it up with 160 yards. Brett Favre is 121 yards passing, but only 42% completion. And let's move on to the game.
All right.
Let's see. You're just having trouble kicking the end zone, so I can't call a touchback.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tom.
It's all right.
I'm starting to have a better kickoff.
You need to work on your kickoffs.
That was a perfect kickoff.
Yeah, you could have put a little bit more power into it.
Oh man. So yeah, a lot of this game is definitely just improving on what was already there.
Red 24. Red 24.
And I really think the only real downfall, I mean, of the music is that the players move a little bit slower in this game. They did a lot of like nice touches where you can change the plays in the middle of the game.
Yeah, that's
Stuff like that.
another good point. If you hit Y in the controller, not only can you change your players, and you actually you have a return team that's set, so you can't just put any random guy there. And then you can also change your playbook in game. So there you go. Look at that. So you can just start a game, and then if your plays aren't working out, you could switch them up. You still have only 8 selectable plays during the game, so you can't pick all of them, but it gives you different options if the plays you're using aren't working against your opponent. So you can't. That's really a great feature in this game. You can't hate on that too much.
Another notable.
Let's change the strategy a little bit though.
Man, the Lions are having a
First
field day
down.
right now. Another notable thing about the playbooks is I'm pretty sure it's exactly the same. It just, it's presented a little bit different. You have the same exact plays as you had in the last game. They did not add any plays.
No, they didn't add any plays. They just have this new way of displaying them. Touchdown.
Breaking a tackle for a touchdown. Throwing Reggie White to the ground. I don't think that happens.
Sometimes it happens. It happens in Tecmo Super Bowl. Yeah, honestly, they tried to make the plays look better.
I don't think they
do a touchback.
Did that.
It's too deep for you. There it is, the touchback. That's what I wanted to show her.
Wow, that's beautiful. I'm so glad.
It was your best. It was your best option, anyways. But yeah, the plays don't look as clean as they look on the Nintendo.
No, they're really confusing.
They're like I don't know, the lines being bigger, and it makes them more confusing. I know they try to make that look better, but it actually looks worse in this game. It's kind of hard to tell which plays are the ones you like to use in the previous game. Using this one,
I was having trouble picking my plays from the last game.
Pick that off.
Man, this is not going good for me right now.
Blue 48. Hut.
I think we should also point out that the cheerleaders on the sidelines, they do a little bit more than they did in the last one.
Yeah, I really wasn't looking at them, but that's a good point. They're actually animated. Another thing Tecmo threw in there, throwing some ladies on the sideline.
Now I can't remember this off the top of my head, but were there referees holding up the first down markers in the last one?
First down.
I do not believe so.
That's another added touch.
150 yards for Sterling Sharp right there. Brett Favre, I think he has a chance to throw for 300 yards. We'll see.
What translate the touchdown?
That's to be determined.
And that's really what's important about a football game, is winning. Scoring touchdowns. Not throwing yards. This isn't fantasy sports.
Now, this is one of those games. Super Nintendo was the first new system that I had, but I never experienced this as a young kid. I didn't get this game till later, till I had some nostalgia for the system. And I did a little bit of research on, what other systems Tecmo Super Bowl was on, and so I don't have nostalgia for this game, and I do have at least one friend, my friend Chris. He said he had some nostalgia for this game. He used to play it all the time with his friends. So this is one of those games I would have loved to play back in the day, but the NES version did the trick for me, so I didn't really.
I don't know if it really would have changed my opinion of this game if I would have the nostalgia for this one.
Yeah, I think if this is the first Tecmo Super Bowl you played, it's good enough to really grab your attention. And have some.
Oh, nice tackle.
Thank you. You
That
could.
was rough.
If you don't have nostalgia for this, or you do, I still recommend picking this game up. It's a fun game to play and to showcase on the Super Nintendo.
Favre is not fast enough for that. Look at him laying there in the background.
Third down. Lockdown. Lockdown on third down.
I'm just trying to get it in there, Tom. Can you just let me get it in there?
I'm really trying to have a goal line stand here. Oh, there is another feature of this game is there's actually a automatic dive play when you're on the 1 yard line.
So it'll automatically happen?
No, it doesn't automatically happen. I think you have to hit like, you hit like up and B or something. No, that's not true. There's something you hit to make it die on offense. I forget what it is.
Blue 48. Hut. 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 Hut.
It might be like some. Did you just do it?
It was X.
It was just press X. Okay.
I was trying to figure it out.
I didn't guess it, so I don't know how it connected so easily.
Well, Tom, I had 2 yards to go, and if I would have jumped to 1 yard, I would have landed not in the end zone. So that's probably why it gave me that cutscene.
Yeah, like okay, we'll just smack this down right now because you're gonna embarrass yourself. Just falling on the 1 yard line.
I wish we would have discussed that before that play.
Yeah, it was kind of a crucial play for you.
You make it. I don't understand.
Yeah, you got a couple yards.
I would have scored a touchdown if you didn't shut me down.
I just wanted to see if I could do it at any time. So yeah, just press X, and you have a extra 9th play you can use. Oh, look at that! You got to know your Tecmo outlets.
It's not very well stated in the playbook here. How would you even figure that out?
Well, back in the day, they had this thing called the game manual, and once in a while you had to
read it.
exactly. Comes a big floater. Oh, JJ time.
The Lions are not this good passing. I don't know what's going on.
Hey man, he's wide open down the field. Ronnie Pete's not overthrown.
Ronnie Pete's having a great game.
Oh, Willie Green's having a great game. 150 yards for him. Forget Herman Moore. We got Willie Green.
It's good.
Now, field goal kicking in this, you can miss extra points. You can't just tap A.
Even though we've been doing that anyway.
Yeah, we've been pretty much doing it, but you can miss your extra points there. So kicking is a little bit more It's not more difficult because it's the same exact way you kick with the moving meter.
There's just
or
a margin
moving
for error now.
There's more margin for error in the kicking game. You got Sterling wide open.
Still an incomplete pass.
Incomplete.
I might have to pull Favre. This is looking bad.
No, I don't think that's a good option.
Do I got Rodgers now right now at this point in time?
No. In later games of Tecmo, you can actually edit the players, their names. So you could do something like that, but in this game, no can do. You're stuck with Favre and whoever their backup is in this game.
And why would you ever put in the backup? In the NES version, was there a quarterback that was as good as the quarterback that was out there for starter?
What do you mean?
Like, I know on the Niners, Steve Young is the backup quarterback, but he's not that good.
Yeah, he's all right. There's usually not the backup quarterback's usually not better than the starter unless their condition is much better than theirs. Then their ratings can be higher.
I remember putting in Steve Young just so I could do a QB scramble because he's one notch faster.
Yeah, he's got a little speed over Joe Montana.
Oh man.
I don't think the guy saying touchdown in this game is effective. Because, it's not as iconic for me. He's kind of like a little bit faded, like touchdown.
Well, you bring up another good point about iconic voice samples. In the last game, we didn't even mention this, but the hut, 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 that's really iconic. In this game, you got Brown, 52, set, hut, hut. Like, I don't want to hear that every play.
Yeah, it's kind of cool though, I think, just because it gives you a little something different, because the Super Nintendo was capable of more voice samples like that, and it's not just the same old thing. And it's like it's a little bit more accurate because quarterbacks will call out to their other players like kind of what play it is or what cadence they're using to call hike or start the play. So I don't mind that at all. It's just it's weird how when one game goes from a less powerful console to the next, that certain things like the music in this game is not as good. You said it was like the synthesized music, and we know that the Super Nintendo had a Sony sound chip in it, so it should be more capable of better sounds, but it's all based on the developers and what they can compose for the game.
Yeah.
And there it is. Game over. Detroit Lions beat the Packers 35-7. And Barry Sanders was the star player of the game. Also Willie Green. Sterling Sharp had a good game. Brett Favre, 30% completion. Not too good. And that wraps up this game. You got anything else to say before we go to a quick break?
No, I don't.
All right.
I'm not happy about how this game turned out. I got smashed. So,
all right, we'll be back to talk about the ratings and some other things that this game has to offer after these messages. We'll be right back.
When you decide to step up to this kind of power, this kind of challenge, this kind of flying, crashing feeling, when you decide to get serious, there's only one place to come, the games of Super Nintendo. No one else creates this kind of experience, because no one else creates these kinds of games. Now you're playing with power, superpower.
Okay, we are back with this wonderful new added menu music.
I think this is probably the best composed song in the game right now. But it's so repetitive that you just want
it almost sounds like it has potential, but it just loops. It's way too short.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh yeah, this is kind of going somewhere. It's just like, and then that's it for that. Alright, so we want to go into some team data and some differences with how this game looks compared to Tecmo Super Bowl on the NES. So, that being such a iconic game, such a revolutionary game when it came out, it's hard to follow up something like that. So with this version of the game, you have a more powerful console, so things like the NFL helmets look a lot better in this game.
Definitely.
But I also like that they use the same layout. And we talked about that on the last podcast, that it's really easy just to see all the teams on one screen in their helmet and then easily navigate through the teams without, having to scroll through the whole teams and go in alphabetical order. They're organized by division in this game, and that's one feature that we definitely like.
Yeah, I think they also have a nice touch with the AFC and the NFC logos behind each of the, conferences.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. In the background there, the NFC and AFC, that's a nice little feature, kind of faded out in the background there. So,
see, one thing that's a little unclear about this one is what conference does the Jets actually belong to?
well, they're right. They're not separated at all. So that first column has 10 teams, and there's no space in between. So, you know,
I mean, obviously we know what it is,
Yeah,
but it's slightly unclear. But you know,
yeah. So you got the Jets here, Patriots. So yeah, I see what you're saying there. So as you go into here, you got a nice background compared to just black on the Nintendo version.
you know what's interesting about that background? And I'm pretty sure that's like a mock-up of the old Monday Night Football background on that brick wall.
Yeah, it does look very similar to that, and that's probably might have been the inspiration for it. Now let's go real quick into player data here. So now these are a bunch of no names. I don't remember these guys.
Why'd you even
Scott,
pick the Patriots?
let's go into someone better, like the Buffalo Bills during their Super Bowl reign of losses. So Jim Kelly is now in this game. He was not in Tecmo Super Bowl for them. Yes, he was QB Bills. So go into it and boom. What do you notice is a difference?
You know, I don't know what Jim Kelly looks like, Tom. Where's his picture?
That's a good point. All you have is the helmet and the helmet for every single player. So they took a nice feature from Tecmo Super Bowl out of this game, which was the profile pictures. That added a lot of character to the game. And as we talked about on the last podcast, it gave the game like so many different video, like they were all the Tecmo Super Bowl players on the field, all the football players were like their own character because that profile picture kind of gave them that, you know, relevance.
Yeah.
So,
I think that they were so impressed with the way that the helmets look that they were just like, we have to put this everywhere we possibly can.
and you know, as someone who's looking at the last game, you see that as lazy programming. Like we don't feel like looking to see what every guy looks like and creating a profile picture for him. So we're just gonna be generic. We're gonna create the one helmet and put it for every single player. Whereas the last game that was 2 years older had an individual picture that looked pretty good, like the NFL player would look, and this game just completely not there.
And like one of the things I brought up earlier, you know, it was hard to look up to see who was actually on teams back in the day. So I mean, having that ability to look at a person's face and have an idea of what the player looks like that you're actually watching when you watch football, it's, you know, that's a good feature to have. Now we don't have that.
We don't have that, and for me, as someone who had no nostalgia for the game, seeing that, you know, being so attached to the way it was laid out in the original Nintendo version, I was really disappointed by that. I know it's a minor thing to most people, but for me, looking at that, I was like, oh man, it's you know, you're just looking at text now.
Yeah.
It's just basically a bunch of text. Whereas before you gave each screen character. So there's a little bit of artistic influence that has been removed from the game. And as you can see, the ratings, we went through these for the Nintendo, and they're pretty much the same. They didn't change any of the ratings for the players. What they did do, though, is they added a few subs, I think, right? Oh, you can change the return team. What is the team area?
I don't know, Tom.
I think what I think the team area is for, and I could be wrong here, I think they come in for injured defensive players.
Oh, so the defense players can now get injured?
I think. I could be wrong about that, though. That's something I'll have to take a look at. And if you listen to this podcast, you can gladly, I will take the correction on that one. And then you have your offensive players you can sub in and out. So there's not a lot of changing as far as that's laid out. And then the playbook we talked about, we don't like the way this looks. It's really blocky and it's too congested. They made like every little square where the player is. They just made it too big. They added, I guess the wrong colors. You could pretty much tell what the plays are, but some of the routes are kind of cut short, I feel like, because of the lack of room. Whereas with smaller squares and smaller lines, you can kind of tell better where the receiver is going to end up on that play. And
one thing I'd like to say about that is, the plays, they do look more congested and everything, and then on top of that, when you throw it on top of the field, it looks even more confusing. This is a slightly more manageable because you have that like blank background kind of look. Like in the last one, you had you're just standard black in the margins there, so that's not confusing you.
Are you talking about like during the game?
Yeah, during the game, the plays
In
are
this.
overlaid over the field.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it looks like an impressive thing, but with the way that the plays look, it just makes it slightly more confusing than it would be if it was on a basic background.
Yeah, and I could also see why they didn't add additional plays, because with the ability now to change your playbook in game, you have access to all the plays now during the game. So, before, Tecmo Bowl 1, you're limited to 4 plays. Each team, you can't change the plays at all. Tecmo Super Bowl NES, you have 8 plays that are static once you enter into the game, but you can change them. In this game, you have access to all the plays even during the game. So the need to create new plays, not so much there because of that one feature added.
So I think one thing that I don't know the answer to, and I hope you know the answer, did they program pass control into this, or pass accuracy in this game?
I do not know the answer to that. I know that, the other game has been hacked, Tecmo Super Bowl and the NES. That knowledge is out there. That information is out there. So it's something that I'm sure someone probably knows if the accuracy was put into the game. So what we're talking about right now, Dan Marino here, passing accuracy 66 is a 63, and it was not programmed into Tecmo Super Bowl to actually do anything. So was it programmed into this game? Was that fixed, or was the old code just kind of patched into this version? I don't know. So that is something that we'll definitely have to look into, and once we play this game on the Sega Genesis, we can possibly give that information out there.
All right.
So you do have the Pro Bowl team, and the layout's pretty much the same as...
Same rules apply there.
Same
You
rules
change
apply.
the-
You can change the players. And then season game, you got your season, and you have all the weeks. You have the actual 1993 schedule.
Looks,
There's 18 weeks now because each team had 2 byes during this season.
it looks exactly the same. One of the things that they did drop, though, is they don't have the date of that week. Not a huge detail, but something they did leave out.
Yeah, that is true. That's something that, I didn't actually notice, but now that you pointed out, yeah, they don't have the date of each week. And then here you can check the playoffs even before you start the playoffs. You can't do that in the last version. Reset, auto skip is obviously to just simulate. Oh, look at this.
Did not know this was in the game. 3 years mode. What is that?
So 3 years mode looks like you play 3 years consecutive.
I wonder if it takes different rosters.
I doubt it would take.
I doubt it would either, but I did not know this was in the game. That's kind of cool.
It would be interesting to see if the cutscenes were different. If you say you won the Super Bowl 2 or 3 times, probably not. if I know anyone who has gone through 3 years mode, I'd like to know if the cutscenes are actually different.
Yeah, I wish this was something we realized beforehand, so we could have looked into that. So that is a difference in the season mode.
Yeah, so there you can play a 3-year mode. And this version, you're not able to complete any trades, stuff like that. That stuff would be added in later games, but this one, the teams are static the way they are. And everything else, NFL standings, team rankings, this is stuff that is exactly the same as Tecmo Super Bowl. You don't really have to go over this, but all those great features of stat tracking are included in this one. And just, you know, the menus, the backgrounds, they're just slightly enhanced from the last version.
Minus the NFL leaders, because it doesn't have a picture of what the thing is. You know, it has like a silhouette of a quarterback in the passing.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Just a nice basic background.
A nice little basic.
So losing a little bit of character there. But everything's pretty much the same. So I would like to select a different team, and we did not change our playbook. So would you like to change your playbook for your team? Or
No.
did you want to just run off with a raw dog?
Well, what we'll do, we'll take a quick break right now, and we'll update our playbook, and we'll be back to play a game in the snow. So after these messages, we'll be right back.
There's Dad over there.
Ooh, I just love all the new things Kmart has here.
Oh, I can see that.
So that's the new Super Nintendo Entertainment System.
What about it?
They say it has 16-bit technology, whatever that means.
Oh, I see. What else do they say?
That it has 3D graphics and digital stereo sound, and that Super Mario World is included.
Okay, we'll get it for him. So, how long did he work on you?
About 2 weeks.
Alright, we are back to play a game in the snow. We're going for an NFC East division rivalry. The Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Redskins. Matt is the Philadelphia Eagles. He's a big Randall Cunningham fanboy. And I just want to use the Redskins motion offense because it's kind of cool.
Now, logically, it would not snow in Washington, but...
In Washington, D.C., it will snow.
Oh, never mind. I was thinking Washington State.
Never mind. You got to do a little bit of research on where your NFL teams are from, but it's okay. I can forgive you.
How is it that the team from our nation's capital is such a racist team?
You know, just looking back in history, I
I don't think there's a good excuse for it, Tom.
yeah, that's not something that I'm really too concerned about, but yeah, it is kind of interesting that the team's capital team is a Redskins, so it's Indian, so Native American, whatever you want to call it. But what I wanted to talk about here while we play this game is what kind of scene does this game, what kind of community does this game have
Red 24.
specifically?
Put.
Tecmo Super Bowl on the Super Nintendo. It does have. It has been an option on the Tecmo Player Circuit, which is
First down.
where you can hook up with some online games on Tecmo Super Bowl. And it was never really highly played. It was all about the Nintendo version. And yeah, some people played it. Kind of cool that option was there. So Tecmo Super Bowl enthusiasts didn't have just one option. They can upload their stats on the Super Nintendo game. But people were really, for when I played on there really weren't that into it. It was a lot tougher to get a game going. And you'd use the emulator, the SNES, to play those games.
Yeah.
So there's not live tournaments for this game that I know of. I don't know if there's ever one been held. I know that there is for the original Tecmo Bowl. They're not as big as the ones for Tecmo Super Bowl. But this game and RBI Baseball, not this game, but the Tecmo Bowl on the NES and RBI Baseball are being featured in the Retro World Series that is taking place in Houston in August of 2016.
They chose this game?
Not this game.
Oh,
Tecmo
sorry.
Bowl on the Nintendo.
Tecmo Bowl.
Tecmo Bowl, the original.
Oh, okay.
So they actually sponsored the Tecmo Madison tournament, and they were advertised throughout. They brought some retro consoles there. They also were part of the streaming of basically the big tournament and the championship and all that stuff. So it's a brand new thing.
Randall.
It's going to be a lineup of retro games, and the original Tecmo Bowl is one of those games. Now, it's interesting that they did pick that game, because I think with a small bit of research on the internet, you can find that the Tecmo Super Bowl on the Nintendo has the largest following. And that's my bad.
Yeah.
I was switching players so he couldn't call hype. Couldn't snap the ball. But that's, and hopefully it's not a mistake for them. There are some people who like that game, and as I've said in the Tecmo Bowl podcast, there's a great series, there's a great website that's Tecmo Bowl versus RBI Baseball, where you can get pretty much all the information you're ever going to need about the first version of the game. And I would use that as a reference if you were planning on playing that tournament. Now, the same mistake, I don't think it's a mistake, but this game did come out, was a re-release, kind of, on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. The Tecmo Bowl
Throwback.
Tecmo Bowl Throwback.
It was a updated version of the graphics, which it turns it into widescreen, and the players are in 3D. And it kind of looks similar to the later iterations of Tecmo Bowl, but better looking. And then you could hit a button, and it would transform the game to look like this, while in the middle of the gameplay. So it was all based off of the Super Nintendo version of the game. So all the players are the same, but the teams are different because they did not have the NFL license, thanks to EA.
Yeah, and I think in that game, it could have been okay with the remake of this game. There were a lot of people excited for it in the Tecmo community. But where the biggest issue for me with that game is the online play was horrible. It was just awful. One of the things is there's something called lurching in these games, and we really haven't talked about it much. But it's when you take the nose tackle, so the guy right on the D-line in the middle, and then you dive in to get the quarterback on plays that aren't shotgun. Even some run plays you can do it, but it's extremely easy to do in the Super Nintendo version, even more so than the NES version, and in large tournaments that's actually outlawed. So imagine playing a game online that's based off of this game, so it plays just like it, and that's not outlawed in it. The system doesn't even count wins or losses. It's like some weird
First down.
point system where you just gain points by each game you win or play. And it was not a stable connection like other games. It was just really a total nightmare from the get-go. I don't know if I've ever even played a full game on there because it was just so bad.
The thing...
A full game online. Of course I play a full game, and I kind of liked the way it looked. I did like the way the updated graphics looked, but I think they could have did a little bit better when the players get into like tackle mode, grapples, tussles. They just kind of were touching each other. And in this game, you can see clear animations when the players are battling out to get to tackle. There's an animation there, whereas in that game, they just were like attached to each other until one of them fell over. It was kind of stupid.
The thing that I had, the biggest issue with that game, was that it was based off of the Super Nintendo version, making the players slower. So you have the updated graphics with the longer looking field, and you have these players that are crawling around the screen rather than moving quickly. So the game just didn't feel fun to me.
Yeah, and it's based, like I said, it's based off of this game. So the players, they're slow. They're slower than the NES version. And for a game, for a retro kind of re-release, it's a great game today because it plays like an arcade game. And this one, even though it only takes a small step towards more of a simulation type game, it is closer to that than the Nintendo.
First down.
It's a lot different than when they remade NBA Jam. They did change. They followed the basic premise, but they did change some things. Whereas in that game, they really made no changes besides the updated graphics, and you could like I said, you could press the one of the back buttons on the PlayStation or Xbox controller and change the view.
I think in this series, that game would definitely be worth covering, just to see the evolution of the game itself. But I don't think we should spend a whole long podcast like we spent on this game or the last games.
And it could be the death of the series. Tecmo is one of those companies that's still around. They're partnered up with what is it, Koei?
Yeah.
Koei Tecmo, and so there's always a possibility that game could resurface. But I don't. The people who are behind these originals are long gone. And to ask, really, if they want to recreate one of these games, they should plug a team from the Tecmo community.
That's exactly what they should do. They should pull people that create the ROMs every year and are still active online and have them have, creative decision over the game.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if a team, if a company, an old company was that innovative to pursue something like that. Now, I don't know. Do you know if Tecmo has ever really developed games outside of Japan, or do all of their releases come from Japan?
I can't give you an answer on that. I think there might be a Tecmo America branch, but I don't know what they do.
They're not making Tecmo Super Bowl.
The way that Tecmo is and their style of game is a very Japanese approach to video games. So I would assume that most of their
halftime touchdown.
Most of their development teams are probably Japanese. And I think if they were to reach out to the Tecmo community to make another game, it would be a long shot, just the way that Japanese companies work. But I think it would be something that would be really good for the series. One thing I want to point out is the ref kind of looks like Inspector Gadget to me. I don't know if you feel the same way about that.
In this game,
Yeah.
it really didn't look
Looks
at
like
it
he's
close
wearing a
enough.
hat.
He could be, you know. Both quarterbacks, 100% passing. All right.
Randall is
Randall's
doing it big.
Leading rusher too.
That's why I love
Do you-
Randall Cunningham.
Do you know of any game company that has actually taken that approach, taking players? I know they listen to feedback now from the community, but have they actually
Taking people from the community to help develop the games. I mean, I've seen Bungie do it with Halo. They have a mode in the game called Forge Mode, which is basically like a level creator. And, you know, people that were big in the Forge community, the last one that they made, they got a lot of input from them. What tools would you like to see in this game? Stuff like that. So, I mean, it's not an unusual thing for game companies to pull from the community. I just think a Japanese game company asking a large American fan base to help create, you know, a game.
Well, everyone, you know, that is a retro gamer or is. Well, most people know what Tecmo Super Bowl is, and if you read the article that I posted in the description of the last podcast about there's a Tecmo Super Bowl, the guy who developed the game, the 1991 Nintendo release, had no clue that this game was still being played over here in large tournaments. I mean, that's a pretty big disconnect.
Yeah, well, who knows if he's still with the company.
No, he's not with the company still. But it just goes to show you, you know, this is just a project the guy worked on, you know. Him being a Japanese guy, you know, from the story, one of them was a big fan of the NFL. The guy who actually programmed it didn't sound like he was. You know, he had just no idea. So, yeah, I think that, to me, Tecmo Throwback, that was kind of like the death of the series to me. Unfortunately. Because I always look forward to, you know, games that I like coming out in new re-releases. And kind of, I feel the same way about NFL Blitz, the one EA remade.
Yeah, EA did a really good job with the remake for NBA Jam, and then the one for Blitz fell short. It did not feel like Blitz.
And one of the reasons is the late hits aren't there anymore, and the NFL probably had them take those out just because there's so much controversy over what is being done to NFL players with their concussions, and this was sports safe, so, you know, having late hits included in one of their officially licensed games where guys are getting laid dropped on, clotheslined. It's probably not what they want to come out with in 2012, so I can understand, but it's not the same game without that kind of stuff.
Getting back to Tecmo, we'll probably cover this as we go further into the series, but there was pretty consistent releases for this game beyond what was released on the retro consoles. I believe there was a mobile version of this game that was released, I want to say roughly like 2003, 2002, which was just a cell phone game, which, you know, is going to be lost to time. It was, I don't know, but an emulation software that can probably play that game. But that one was, you know, pretty decent. And then they had a DS release, which was called Tecmo Bowl Kickoff. And that one, I think, was also based off of this version of the game. But that game had, interesting customization feature to the game. So if you kept playing through the season, you could improve the stats of your players. So you could just keep building everything. You could like adjust the way that the teams looked, and minus like their logo, but you could change like their colors and stuff like that.
I think you could play that game online through Wi-Fi, right?
You could play that game online. That was a good step. That game. It had similar style graphics to this game. It wasn't like a cookie cutter thing like Tecmo Throwback, where it was literally the same exact look for the classic mode of it.
Yeah, well, that game got me excited because it was only a portable release, and I did think it took a step in the right direction. So when I heard the announcement of Tecmo Throwback, I was a little bit excited for it because of what that game was able to accomplish. And as far as the Tecmo Bowl on the mobile, I had that game on my LG, I think VX6000 flip phone. And you're not missing anything because that game was terrible.
But it was.
Most people don't know this, but they did have a iPhone game too.
I did not know.
They had an iPhone game very early when I had the 3GS. Tecmo came out with a mobile version of this game. I did not download it because I didn't like the price. And wow, nice pick.
Wow, back-to-back interceptions.
All the reviews said it was terrible. It's hard to control with the touchscreen, so I didn't end up getting it. But yeah, there wasn't mobile, and there was a mobile iPhone release as well, and that has been taken off the App Store, and probably because it was terrible. And the price was just, I think it was $7.99 maybe, but I could be wrong.
Oh, come on!
Fumbleitis.
I guess Randall ran one too many times.
Yeah, Randall, he's just not feeling running the ball anymore. You gotta give him a break.
Now, you did say that the mobile version of the game was terrible. I thought that, being on a flip phone, it was good for what it was. I mean, you can't really play games very good on there, but, it was pretty good for what it was.
Yeah, for the time, games on cell phones, downloadable games. It was, yeah, you're right. It was like pretty like, oh, this is cool. Look, I could pull this flip phone out and start playing this Tecmo Bowl game. So I had to get it, of course. And there's no replayability, but at the time it was just cool to have, show off, and
updated rosters too.
Yeah. I don't. Was that one officially licensed? Was that before EA bought?
I don't know. I don't know if EA has control over the consoles or the mobile space for that.
That's true, because there have been some mobile releases that
have the NFL license.
Yeah, not in a while, but
so it's possible that EA at the time did not have the NFL license for mobile games because they just didn't care because it wasn't relevant at the time. But getting back to Tecmo Bowl Kickoff, I think that would be an awesome game to cover in this series, but it would be really difficult because capturing off of the DS is expensive. You either have to mod it or you have to buy an expensive capture kit for it, and then we would also have to have another cartridge and another DS to do it, or we could do it off of emulation and link up that way. But
we'll look into it. We really want to show as many Tecmo Bowl games as we can on this podcast series. Let's go for the field goal and ice this game. So we'll look at all options. Also, the Game Boy game. The original Tecmo Bowl was on the Game Boy, so that's another thing we can play on the GameCube with the Game Boy player adapter.
And then I
have that,
Game
so
Boy.
That's something we could look into too. I don't know if I have that version of the game, but I'm assuming it's not too pricey. But yeah, we just want to cover as many of these games as possible and show you the differences, because it is a series that deserves a lot of respect, and it's a series that people have a lot of nostalgia for.
I think Tecmo, they made a really good football game. They made other sports games, but they're not as good as this one. And I think all of their games, their sports games that they made, their retro are worth covering, because Tecmo did a really good job with this series. So I mean, it's good to show a comparison of the other ones.
Yeah, because there's some on this series that are really good, and I would consider this one of those games. And then there's some that aren't top notch, and we'll get to some of those later. I think you might know which ones those are. As far as what I know about Tecmo Super Bowl 2, the special edition, it is, I guess, the information out there says that it was a limited release. So there's not as many out there. Even if you look to purchase it on eBay, there's really not that many out there. But then I don't think there's a lot of people really trying to play that game too much. And I've emulated the game before, and wasn't too impressed initially, but probably didn't give it the time it deserves, so we will do that. As this game winds down 24-14, it's not looking good for you, buddy.
No, it's not going to happen in this one. I just wanted to get in one last touchdown, but it didn't happen.
Dale Green is all over the place.
Had a really rough half.
Mark Reitman doing it, 66%, 239.
Almost 100 rushing yards for Randall Cunningham.
Almost 100 for him. So, with the end of that game, we are going to take one more break, and I'm going to come back with some of the cutscenes of, winning the division, AFC, NFC Championship, also halftime show in this, and winning the Super Bowl championship. So I want to show that stuff as well. So after these messages, we'll be right back, and we'll be able to show you that stuff and end the podcast there. So we'll be right back.
You couldn't get enough of it. You ate Nintendo. You drank Nintendo. You slept Nintendo. Now, Toys R Us and the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. A new Nintendo system with Super Mario World. 3D graphics, 32,000 colors, 16-bit power. Toys R Us, the biggest video game store in the world. So now you can breathe Nintendo, love Nintendo, be Nintendo at Toys R Us.
Alright, I am back from the break, and what I'm showing you here is each team winning the division, the NFC, AFC Championship, special halftime show, and then also the ending to the game when you win the Super Bowl. So during the break, I was able to do a little bit of research on a few things we missed earlier in the podcast. And basically, I wanted to go through those things. So I was a little bit confused on what the team area was for. And because there's you get designated kick returners, and then you also get a team area. The team area is a couple extra defensive backs in case your kick returners that are defensive backs get injured. So your defensive players can get injured, but only when they're actually kick returning. So your defensive players otherwise can't get injured. And that's the only way you'd be able to sub out a defensive player is if they actually get injured. One of your defensive backs gets injured during a kick return. Now, other than that, in this game, when you're playing, you can actually go to check your defensive player's conditions. So you go to the menu screen, and then you go to change, and then you can go in there and then look at your defensive player's condition. The other thing that this game has is you could change your quarter length, and it's easy to overlook. And that's because you can only do it in preseason and Pro Bowl, and you have to hit the A button twice, basically, on when you have preseason or Pro Bowl highlighted, and then you're able to switch the time from 3 minutes up till 15 minutes. So earlier we're kind of complaining that, or I was complaining that the time that it takes to play one game is a little bit too long. Well, you do have the time option in there for at least preseason games, so you can make the games a little bit shorter. So that really is a nice feature, but it's easily overlooked. Now, one of the things that I was surprised to see that I forgot about was the 3-team season. Now, you don't get anything special for doing that. It just allows you to play through the 1991, 1992, and 1993 schedule. So if you're really into the original maybe, and that's something that you like to do, is play through since the 1991 schedule, 92, 93, because the NES version came out in 1991, and then this one came out in 1993, so you did miss the 1992 season with Tecmo Super Bowl games. So maybe that's something you want to do. Let's see, what else was changed? You had, one thing that I don't use is you can actually cycle backwards through the receivers. So in the Tecmo Super Bowl for the NES, you could just hit the A button and you scroll through the receivers one way. Well, in this game, you could hit, I believe it's X, and you could cycle backwards through the receivers. So that makes it a little bit harder on your defender to guess where you're going to throw the ball, because you can actually switch both ways and not just one. So that's a nice feature, but when you're used to one way, it's hard to get used to cycling backwards through the receivers. So I only recommend it for newer players who have never played the series. Overall, if you're a true fan of the Tecmo series, this is probably your best bet on the Super Nintendo. Why? Because they didn't develop this game too far off from the original Nintendo version. Yeah, some things look a little better. They changed a few rules like the touchback to be more accurate to NFL rules. They did nerf the game speed, which we've already talked about. Not too fond of that. But overall, this game stays true to the series, and it does look better. So there's a lot about this game that you could say is positive. If you haven't played this version of the game, I recommend picking it up for sure. The one thing I do wonder about this game is what the Super Nintendo players that played Tecmo Super Bowl on the Nintendo and then picked this up 2 years later on the Super Nintendo, what they actually thought of this game, because it really is mostly just a repackaged version of the first one with updated rosters, and there's a lot improved. So this is kind of where sports games headed, in the future. It's just slightly enhanced version of the last game with different features. So that's kind of the feeling you get from this game. Now, since the original was so groundbreaking, I think you got your money's worth, because it still plays like it, looks good. There's certain things that were taken out, like profile pictures. That kind of sucked. But overall, it's a great version of the game. Unfortunately for Tecmo, this is where things started to go a little bit downhill, and we'll get into some of those games, but they really were the first company to give you a full experience of the sports games with stats and everything included. So this was one of their better games. And then other companies like EA, Sega Sports, they started to make sports games too. Konami and Capcom even had an NFL game on the Super Nintendo. I haven't played them yet, but I can't imagine they're as good as this game. But, everyone was trying to get into the sports game world at this point. Very popular, big sellers. You got tons of sports titles out there. And it's almost like Tecmo, they set the bar of what a good sports game should be and a full offering for the player. And then it's kind of like they just didn't carry that torch. So I'm going to leave it at that because I want to experience the next few versions of the game because we still have Tecmo Special Edition. That's Tecmo Super Bowl 2, which came out on Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. And then the same thing for Tecmo Super Bowl 3, which is the final edition, which actually was not the final edition because there's one more version of the game on the Sony PlayStation, as well as many other remakes that we will look at. Just a few things to consider before we wrap up this podcast. So you could play Tecmo Super Bowl obviously on the Super Nintendo, and then you also have the option to play it on a handy device that Hyperkin makes, which is called a Superboy. It's basically a portable Super Nintendo. So you could actually take this game on the go. Now this game has a battery save, so if you love the series and you want some Tecmo Super Bowl on the go, this is a great option because you could save your season, you can play through it. One thing that I also wanted to say is that the cursor when you're passing the ball, if you're a huge player of the Nintendo version, the cursor starts on the same receiver as it should for passing as the original Nintendo version. Now this is not the same on the Sega Genesis version, which is one of the next games we're going to cover. But for an option to actually play this game on the go with the battery save, and the cartridge I have, the battery still works on it. I'm always amazed by how some of these Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis and Nintendo games, the battery save is still working on them, 25 years later. It's really remarkable. I really want to know what kind of batteries they were using, or if the cartridges didn't use a lot of batteries. So I don't know, but it's just crazy that it actually will still save the game. So with that being said, we'll leave you with the halftime show, and also we'll leave you with, sorry about the sirens in the background, we'll leave you with the Super Bowl champion, and yeah, that's going to wrap up this podcast. I hope you enjoyed the advertisements in between for the Super Nintendo, and I think we'll do some more of that in the future. So this is Retro Sports Gamer signing off the podcast. Lumberjack Cracks was out of here a long time ago, so we'll be back soon with some more Tecmo podcasts, so stay tuned.